So, it all started 10 years ago, right in the middle of a busy city street. Everyone started looking up. Some people were even filming with their phones, and honestly, who wouldn't? Up in the clear blue sky, this crazy structure just appeared. It looked like a flipped castle, glowing bright blue. But that wasn't even the end of it. While everyone stared at the giant castle in the sky, weird things called dungeons popped up all across Japan. Out in the fields, farmers were staring at glowing blue pyramids, and in towns, there were even red ones. And due to that phenomenon, people are awakened to mana. Those blessed with superpower, talents become, which means they could use magic and challenge the dungeons. These mages picked up a ton of money and fame. Everyone started to talk about how a mage's talent was all about the color of their mana. Most people could only use one color, but every now and then, there was a freaky, rare type, a dual-color wielder. Now, get this. This tough guy, Kurosaki Kai, was one of those rare guys, blue and red mana, both at once. He looked super cool, glowing with energy. This dude was basically a legend. They called him the Purple King. But this story isn't just about him. In the middle of some dangerous dungeon, Kai was facing down a big, horned demon. He grinned like a maniac, then blasted the monster with a huge purple energy attack. He yelled out his move, Demon's Lance, and chucked this wild, glowing spear at the beast. He totally wrecked the demon and stood there like a boss. Meanwhile, his older brother, our protagonist, Ray, was just watching from the back. Poor guy, he looked super sad and defeated, especially when Kai, with his usual bad attitude, called him incompetent and tossed a red stone at his forehead just to mess with him. With his Purple King title and tremendous level of 89, he feels so much superior to our poor boy. To be honest, Ray was having a rough time. Dude was a total nobody when it came to magic, colorless, which was even rarer than being extra powerful, but the weakest of all. To make it worse, he is just level 1. Still, our guy didn't quit. He worked as a porter for Kai's party, carrying stuff and hoping, maybe one day, he'd awaken some kind of power. So, the whole squad headed deeper into the dungeon. There was Kai, his goons, and Ray, who just wanted to prove himself. They reached a massive door, the boss's room. The stocky guy said it was time for the big fight, and the serious guy thought it was going to be easy. Yeah, right. That won't happen. Inside, the boss showed up. This monster was huge, with long white hair, dark skin, and glowing yellow eyes. They called it Kronos, the god of time and space. The Purple King didn't look worried at all. He just smirked and blasted Kronos with a ton of purple energy, like it was nothing. The boss just blocked the attack like a walk in the park. Then, Kronos got up and launched this insane counterattack. Suddenly, Kai was hit with red energy and died instantly. Our protagonist just stood there, untouched, looking around in pure shock. He couldn't believe it. His super strong brother had died in an instant. Things got worse. The goons panicked, yelling that they were all going to be killed. Kai was dead, and the rest of the team was just trying to run for their lives, but failed. The MC got knocked to the ground too. Kronos finally turned to him and said that he was completely colorless. Ouch. Our poor guy looked around at his bloody, fallen teammates and clenched his fist. He thought about how he hadn't achieved anything yet, but he really didn't want to die here. So, he grabbed a sword and stood up. Even though his hand was shaking, the enemy just grinned and told him he was going to test him. Then, he slashed at our MC with red energy, hurting him badly. But then Kronos went, oops, maybe that was too much, and did this crazy skill called rewind. Suddenly, our boy was healed, like nothing even happened. But that villain wasn't done playing around. Flames exploded everywhere, and the MC was caught in them, screaming in pain. It looked like he was genuinely finished this time, but even as he got thrown around and burned, he held tight to his sword. Our poor boy was losing hope, saying that normal attacks weren't going to work, but maybe, just maybe, the sword the enemy made himself could do something. With nothing left to lose, our dude charged through the fire, screaming, and actually managed to stab Kronos right in the chest. And for a second, he thought he did it. He landed one hit, but this big baddie just did his rewind trick again. The wound healed up like it was nothing, and our MC was left standing there, totally wiped out and feeling like all his effort was useless. He dropped his sword and just stared at the ground, thinking, did it all mean nothing? Was he really going to die like this? Then, something weird happened. A holographic screen appeared in front of him. He saw the words confirming the presence of the god of time and space, and that the seal on the black skill was being released. That made Kronos silent for a moment. Next thing, golden screens popped up. He got a new skill, skill drain, and even stole that enemy's rewind ability. Kronos freaked out, realizing what was happening. Our MC activated rewind himself, and the whole place exploded into this crazy storm of blue and purple energy. Clocks and gears spinning everywhere, just like the time was messing around by itself, until a white light just swallowed everything. And just like that, our guy woke up in a bed, in a simple room, daylight peeking in. He sat up, totally confused, thinking that he had desperately used the rewind skill, but had no idea what happened next. Then he looked in a mirror and just about lost it. He was back in his younger body. His hair was shorter, and his eyes went wide as he realized he had somehow gone back in time. Dude, if that isn't a reset, I don't know what is. Our protagonist had just been through hell and got a second chance. What the hell was he going to do now? So, our boy Ray, he was shocked out of his mind. He looked outside the window and, dude, get this. The inverted castle was still bright white. That was totally wrong. It was supposed to be pitch black, but now it looked like someone forgot to turn off the lights. Apparently, the castle used to be all white until 7 years ago. After that, it slowly started turning black. And when it went full dark mode, the door that let Kronos out opened up. That was bad news. Then, something clicked in our MC's head. He suddenly remembered how he had stolen the rewind ability from Kronos and used it to send himself back to the past. The guy was basically a time thief. He grabbed his phone super fast because he had to check the date. When he saw the screen, he realized he really did go back 7 years. Now, our hero was crazy curious, so he opened his skill window to check his skills. Surprise! The rewind skill was totally gone, but he still had skill drain. That was enough to make him smile, because for 10 years, all he wanted was to have even one skill, just one. Having skill drain felt like he finally got a win after losing for so long. Right then, his phone beeped with a reminder. Oh, hell. That day was the mage exam, the day he had to show up and try not to look like a total loser. So, the poor guy made his way to the Mage Association HQ. The place was all shiny and new, way different from what he remembered before the rewind. He barely got inside when he heard someone behind him call him colorless. Ouch, bro. He turned around to see Godo and Oike, two guys who worked for his brother. These dudes were also the same ones who ended up dead in Kronos' room in the past. Now they were here, making fun of our MC for coming to take the mage exam. Again, they told him that he could try 100 times, but he would always be colorless, so why bother? They kept laughing at him, but our hero was not in the mood, so he just slapped their hands away and told them to buzz off. Next thing, he found himself in the examiner's office. The examiner was Hinata Reina, a B-rank mage who looked like she had seen Ray way too many times. She told him that if he kept doing this, he was going to get himself killed, but the protagonist told her that this time would be different. He sounded pretty confident, and since he already knew how everything worked, Hinata just sighed and took him to the exam room. The job was simple. Get 3 mana stones from some goblins. For people who had cool skills, this was easy, but Ray always struggled. But here's where it got wild. Something crazy happened that day. A super scary monster showed up in the level 1 dungeon, where nothing like that was supposed to be. He saw the monster in the distance, and, yeah, he knew what was coming. It was a red-cap goblin, level 37. That thing was way out of his league. Hinata freaked out and asked why a monster like that was even there. She pulled out her sword and told Ray to run so she could protect him. But our MC wasn't just going to run away. He remembered that before he went back in time, Hinata tried to protect him, fought the monster, and got so beaten up that she had to quit being a mage. Ray blamed himself for that, and he wasn't going to let it happen again. So, this time, he was ready. Our boy pulled out his short sword and threw it at the goblin, knowing the monster would just brush it off. The red cap had a skill that made it super strong, so the sword didn't do anything. The monster charged at Ray, and he just punched it in the head. Not the smartest plan, right? The monster got mad and was about to smash him. But then, boom! Ray's skill drain kicked in, and he stole the monster's body enhancement skill. Suddenly, he was way stronger. The goblin just stood there, totally confused about why it felt like a weakling. Before it could figure things out, he sliced it in half from head to toe like it was nothing. Hinata's jaw hit the floor. She saw him beat the red cap with just one hit, and even he couldn't believe how awesome skill drain was. He was so happy with himself that he almost forgot where he was. The girl quickly snapped him out of his daydream and demanded to know how he did that. Ray realized he couldn't just say he had a black skill, so he told her it was a coincidence. Yeah, right. Hinata started yelling, saying the exam was supposed to be stopped because a crazy monster had shown up. She told him they had to report it to the HQ. But Ray was worried about his own test and reminded her he still needed 2 more mana stones. Hinata screamed at him, saying he was out of his mind and needed to think about his own safety. But guess what? 2 regular goblins showed up at the perfect time. Ray ran over and took them down super fast, just slicing their heads off. This lady was just standing there, mouth wide open. Our boy picked up the mana stones and asked her if he could take them. She was too stunned to even talk, so they just went back to headquarters. Not long after, Hinata came back and gave our hero his mage license. That's right, he was finally a real mage, even if it was just C rank. Ray looked at the license and let out a tiny smile. It took him so long to get here, but he finally made it. The administrator girl also showed him how much money he could get for the mana stones. Apparently, mana stones were super valuable because they didn't make any CO2 and could be sold to the association. Ray thought beating the red cap had to be worth something, but when he checked the payment, he almost freaked out. For regular goblins, he got 1,000, but the red cap gave him a whopping 3 million. That was insane. Hinata told him not to lose his mind just because he beat a red cap. He was still in shock since he never knew mages could make that much cash, and she told him there was more money to earn if he wanted it. That got our MC curious, so he started asking Hinata more about the dungeons. Ray was feeling pretty hyped after talking with Hinata. He went straight to a C-rank dungeon that was all his, and man, he could barely believe it. In the past, there was no way he could ever go into a dungeon by himself. But now, with his new power, he was 100% sure he could flip his whole future. But right when he was about to step in, something just yanked him back. He got grabbed by a skill called Mana Hand. He spun around, super annoyed, and of course, it was Godo and Oik. These 2 clowns were holding him down, laughing at him for trying to go solo in a dungeon. They said he was breaking the rules and shouldn't even be allowed in there. Our MC was not having it. He gave them a look and said he was allowed because he passed the mage exam. They straight up said they didn't believe him and figured he was lying again. Godo didn't back off. He walked up and pushed Ray's head down, telling him to prove he really awakened his skill. Mana Hand was basically mana turned into a hand that could squash you if it wanted. Even with that crazy body enhancement skill, our guy realized he actually couldn't break free. But come on, when has our hero ever just given up? He got so mad that he just smashed his head into this jerk's face. Godo totally stumbled back, and in that split second, Ray stole his Mana Hand skill right out from under him. The Mana Hand holding him disappeared, and suddenly, a big blue aura burst out of the protagonist. They looked like they were seeing a ghost. Ray didn't waste a second. He tried out his new Mana Hand and grabbed the bastard with it, squeezing, until Godo admitted that our MC really awakened a skill. Oik was not ready to give him any respect, so he went straight for a fireball attack. But Ray just fired up his enhancement skill and sliced the fireball like it was nothing, leaving that punk in shock. The poor guy barely had a second to think before our hero hit him with a punch that sent him flying across the room. Godo was now freaking out because Ray could also use body enhancement. Oike was on the ground, asking if our boy was a dual-colored mage now. Our hero just told him no, and right then, his drain skill snatched the jerk's fireball skill too. Oike's mouth almost hit the floor. He'd never heard of anyone having 3 colors. Ray decided to show off, blasting a fireball at him and scaring him half to death. He asked if they still wanted to fight, but those 2 just stared at each other, totally spooked, and then ran away as fast as they could. Classic. After they bailed, Ray started thinking that his brother Kai was definitely not going to like this. He used to be his brother's lapdog, but now that he had awakened his skills, Kai would probably come crashing in to crush him. And, dude, that purple boy was already level 50, one of the strongest mages around. But that wasn't the only thing on Ray's mind. He knew a super scary dungeon would open soon, so he needed to level up as much as possible. Level was everything for mages. The higher it got, the more mana and skills you had. So, our MC stepped right into the dungeon, all fired up. He was making his way through when, out of nowhere, a level 38 flame wizard jumped him. This monster had fireballs floating all around, and Ray could barely make one himself. It was a huge difference in power. The wizard tossed all those fireballs at him, and he barely blocked one before he had to jump out of the way. Ray knew if he tried to fight head-on, he'd get smoked. But He also remembered every skill had a weak spot right after you used it. He waited, and as soon as the wizard finished launching those fireballs, he dashed in super fast. The monster was wide open for just 2 seconds, but that was all our boy needed. He nailed the wizard with a punch so hard it looked like he'd been hit by a truck and stole his fireball skill at the same time. The wizard tried to fight back, but his fire powers were gone. Our hero decided to show him what payback looked like and blasted a bunch of fireballs at him, totally destroying the guy. When the wizard was toast, he got a bunch of notifications. He had leveled up. He realized fighting higher-level monsters gave way more experience. Sure, it was harder, but skill drain made him totally busted. He checked his status and saw he was up to level 12. He set a new goal, hit level 30. After that, he just started tearing through the dungeon, knocking down monsters left and right. Pretty soon, he was up to level 27. But he noticed things were slowing down. Leveling up was getting way tougher now. He knew the only way to keep going was to fight stronger monsters. So, our hero went straight to the deepest part of the dungeon and found the boss room. He was pumped. This was exactly what he needed. He kicked the door open and saw 2 level 30 imps and 1 huge level 45 skull demon waiting for him. The skull demon looked like it was ready to ruin his whole day. Ray got serious real fast. Knowing he needed to steal their skills to win, he charged right at the skull demon. But just as he was about to land a hit, he hit a wall of mana, literally. The demon had a mana barrier, and skill drain wouldn't work. The skull demon wasn't messing around, either. It charged Ray so hard, it almost tore his head off. But he managed to dodge in the nick of time. Our guy knew he was going to have to pull something wild if he wanted to survive this one. So, our hero had to get creative. He went after the 2 imps instead, slicing the first one down and stealing a skill called Ice Needle. Then, he decided the imp would look better as a barbecue and blasted it with a fireball. Not going to lie, that probably smelled awful. The second imp saw its buddy get roasted and looked like it was about to pee itself. Too scared to move, it just stood there, which made Ray's job even easier. Now that he had the Ice Needle skill, RMC turned his attention back to the other one. He shot the ice attack imp and instantly killed it. That trick finally worked, but then, surprise! The imp he just cooked got summoned right back on the field by the skull demon's weird magic. Talk about annoying. Ray was a little stressed, but he figured that more imps meant more XP, and he was totally down for a power-up. So, he took out the imp again, and sure enough, he leveled up. With this new level, he could handle way more mana, and something awesome happened. He unlocked a move called Skill Synthesis. He was so relieved. This was exactly what he needed right now. He wasted no time mixing Ice Needle and Fireball together. And just like that, he got a new move, Fire Lance. This thing looked insane, all red and blue, and he shot it straight at the skull demon. The monster tried its usual mana barrier, but the Fire Lance punched through, giving Ray the chance to get close. He shattered the barrier and smacked the skull demon hard, finally stealing its mana barrier. And while he was at it, he also snatched Extreme Body Enhancement. The skull demon was totally lost now. No power, no shield, nothing left. Our hero was not feeling generous. He finished off the skull demon by blasting a fire lance right through its chest, turning the monster into a pile of burnt bones. A big green mana stone dropped as the prize, and Ray's level went from 28 all the way to 33. He let out a huge sigh of relief. If it wasn't for skill synthesis, he'd be toast. He realized this was a super rare and powerful technique, and it only unlocked at level 30 or so. Just what he'd wanted, and he managed to nail it at the perfect moment. The system popped up to tell him he could now hold 5 skills instead of 3, and he just grinned. Things were about to get way easier for our MC. After picking up his loot and checking his skills, he left the dungeon and went to the headquarters to hand in the green mana stone. When Hinata saw it, she basically lost her mind. She couldn't believe Ray had beaten a skull demon and reached level 33 inches just one day. Our boy tried to play it off, saying he just got lucky, but she told him nobody does that. She said he could even be a B-rank mage now. That's when the mood totally changed. A voice came from behind, and Ray instantly knew who it was. That scary feeling? Yeah, that was his brother, Kai. The purple guy stormed in, saying there had to be a mistake, because there was no way the protagonist was B-rank. He said Ray was just a nobody, with no talent at all. Hinata jumped in to defend our MC, telling Kai that Ray really did beat the red cap and the skull demon. His brother totally lost it when he heard that. He went straight at our boy and threw a massive punch. But Ray just smiled and blocked it with his brand new mana barrier, telling Kai he should probably watch out. That move totally shocked this purple boy. Now, he believed all those rumors about our hero, awakening with new skills. But honestly, Kai wasn't impressed. He told him not to get a big head and warned him to watch his back, saying he wanted to see what Ray was really made of. Hinata saw how wild Kai was acting and asked if he was about to start a fight. He just said there was no problem, as long as our boy could prove he was really B rank. If not, he was just a fake who snuck into the ranks. Ray knew that saying no would just make things worse, so he agreed. That actually surprised Kai and made him even angrier. The two brothers headed straight to the headquarters arena to settle it. The protagonist was no dummy. He knew he had to be careful with his mana, especially since his brother could use 5 skills at once, while he was stuck at 3. If he tried to go blow for blow, he was going to lose. So, he decided it was time to pull out something special. The fight started, and he threw out ice needles, while Kai blasted back with fireballs. The attacks hit each other, making a huge explosion and a cloud of dust. This punk couldn't see a thing, and Ray rushed in using body enhancement, catching his brother totally off guard. Kai was shocked to see him, using 2 magic types. It looked like our MC had finally leveled up. While he got closer, Ray started calculating how much mana Kai had left since he'd already used 1 skill. Then, he activated skill synthesis, creating the fire lance again. The purple boy was stunned, finally realizing our boy could use 3 color skills now. But honestly, Kai wasn't scared at all. Just as Ray was about to land a hit, the bastard launched a massive fireball that destroyed our hero's fire lance, knocking him right to the ground. Ray's face was all shocked. The fire lance had used up 2 skills worth of mana, but Kai broke it with a single move. That cocky boy laughed and told the protagonist that even if he had 3 skill colors, he couldn't compare. Kai was just on a whole different level. Damn. Talk about getting roasted. So, our boy was out here fighting for his life, and this jerk was not playing nice. He started blasting deadly fireballs, and Ray had no choice but to run for his life, dodging left and right, like his butt was on fire. While he was running, he managed to create a fire lance and shot it right at Kai. But, come on, the bastard just smashed it with another fireball, like it was nothing. Then, our hero threw up his mana barrier as fast as he could. But nope, that thing popped like a soap bubble. He got sent flying, crashing to the ground again. That had to hurt, bro. Kai started walking over like he owned the place. He told Ray to get on his knees, bow his head, and maybe he would let this whole thing go. He basically wanted him to admit he was garbage compared to the so-called king. But deep down, Ray knew there was no way he could win by just tossing out basic moves. But he wasn't about to roll over and act like a loser. If he did, he'd be stuck under this jerk's shoe forever. So, our MC got up, even though his body was probably begging him not to, and screamed back that he would never bow down to Kai. Well, that made this jerk lose it. He said that maybe Ray needed to die for real. The guy activated Overclock, a skill that burned a ton of mana, but let him control way more magic at once. With Overclock running, he conjured up a ton of fireballs, looking super smug and telling our boy he was about to see what real power looked like. He called it his King's move, a 10-hit combo attack. Ray nearly lost it when he saw what was coming, because this was Kai's ultimate move. But here's the twist. He had actually wanted this. This was what he'd been waiting for. So, he leapt at his ill brother, and Kai laughed, asking if our MC seriously thought he could dodge a mid-air attack. Ray was basically surrounded by fireballs, but he pulled out Mana Hand, which totally surprised Kai. Our hero knew that, no matter how strong the purple boy was, cooldowns were real. He dodged the fireballs like a maniac and dashed in close. Kai's powers had just hit cooldown when Ray got to him, so our boy socked him right in the face. The punch was so hard, Kai flew across the arena, and, even better, he managed to steal the overclock skill at the same time. For a second, Ray thought he'd finally won, but the bastard was not done yet. He got up, face all messed up, and screamed that he was going to kill him for real this time. Out of nowhere, Kai unleashed something wild. Demon Lance. The protagonist had no clue. This jerk knew that skill already. It was supposed to be his strongest move ever, so he was freaking out while the lance came zooming at him. The speed was insane, but just in time, Ray jumped out of the way. He realized then that the only reason he'd hit Kai before was that the purple guy had been slacking off. But now, Kai was dead serious, and things were going to get ugly. So now, Our hero was stuck running all over the arena like a cockroach, because the power gap was just ridiculous. That punk was blowing up the whole place, and still wasn't tired. Ray tried to hit back with another fire lance, but Demon Lance just destroyed it, and the explosion sent our boy straight into the wall. He let out a scream as he hit, and Kai started mocking him, saying this was why everyone called him the Purple King. Ray couldn't even argue. Demon Lance really was crazy strong, and for a second, he admitted to himself that he was totally outmatched. Once again, Kai stood over Ray, telling him not to get cocky just because he picked up a few skills. Our hero was feeling pretty hopeless, not going to lie. But then, he had a wild idea. If he could figure out the secret to these purple skills, maybe he could flip the game. Before the fight, his skill synthesis only worked with 2 mana colors. But now, with Overclock, he could feel his mana growing like crazy. So, our MC activated Overclock for himself. Kai's jaw practically hit the floor when he saw Ray just casually using that skill, too. Now, our boy had a way bigger mana pool, and skill synthesis was ready to go. He suddenly realized he'd struck gold. A huge grin appeared on his face, while his brother just looked straight up nervous, probably wondering what Ray was plotting. Then, he did something totally wild, something nobody in history had ever pulled off. He started mixing not just 2, but 3 colors together: red, blue, and yellow. He combined them into a new kind of mana, black mana. Kai was so shocked. Everyone always said Ray had no talent for the 3 main colors, but they were totally wrong. Turns out, our hero was a dark mage, and nobody had ever seen that before. With all 3 colors combined, Ray created a new skill: Abyss Flame. This thing looked so dangerous that even this jerk started to freak out. He tried to save himself by launching another Demon Lance and yelled for our boy to stay back. But Ray just threw the Abyss Flame right at it, and the new fireball crushed Demon Lance like it was nothing. With that out of the way, the protagonist charged in, building up another ball of black fire. Kai wasn't giving up, so he summoned the biggest Demon Lance he could. But when they clashed, Black Fireball versus Demon Lance, Ray's attack just ate up the bastard's move, triggered a massive explosion, and left Kai knocked out on the ground. Ray stared in disbelief. He actually did it. He had beaten Kai. Finally. The system notification popped up, letting him know he'd just learned Abyss Flame, all thanks to his new skill synthesis. Our hero had just made history, bro. So, right after that wild fight, Hinata came walking up to our boy, looking like she just saw a ghost. She asked him what kind of skill he had just used, totally shocked by the whole Abyss Flame thing. Ray could tell this was coming. After all, you can't just toss around black fire and expect nobody to notice. But our MC tried to play it cool, acting all smooth, and telling her that it seemed to be a black skill. That answer hit Hinata hard. Bro. She could barely believe it, since Ray was the first person ever to pull off a black skill. Talk about breaking records. Our boy then asked if he had to report this new skill to the Mage Association. He said he would really rather keep it secret, just between them. Hinata was surprised by that, and she told him he might be missing out. Ray got curious and wanted to know what kind of opportunity she was talking about. She explained that the top mage in every color always gets called a king. So, since the protagonist had the black skill and nobody else did, he was basically the Black King now. That kind of blew his mind for a second. I mean, being called a king sounds badass, right? But after thinking about it, he told her he wasn't interested right now. He knew deep down he was still too weak. No way he felt like a king yet. Then he remembered Kai was still knocked out cold in the arena. He asked Hinata if his big brother was going to be okay. She told him not to worry so much. His brother was one of the kings, after all. And even though he was hurt badly, he would recover. She said she was going to take him to the medical room anyway, just to be safe. Suddenly, both of their phones buzzed with an emergency alert. When Ray checked, he realized a dungeon had appeared at the western entrance of Ikebukuro Park, and the recommended level for mages was, get this, 70. Hinata looks confused, but our hero was not surprised at all. He had already lived through this madness once before. He knew this was the legendary level, 70 dungeon, and most kings right now were barely at level 50. He remembered how, in the first week, the kings tried to take on the dungeon, but figured out they were way too weak and just gave up. They left the Ikebukuro dungeon alone, not realizing it was about to blow up in their faces. Back then, nobody knew that if a dungeon wasn't conquered fast enough, it would go boom, and monsters would come pouring out. The Ikebukuro dungeon was the first time a dungeon outbreak happened, and it was a total disaster. Monsters flooded the city, tons of people died, and Tokyo almost got wiped out. Just thinking about it ticked Ray off. He promised himself he would not let that nightmare repeat itself. Hinata freaked out when our MC said he was planning to take down the dungeon himself. She tried telling him he was being insane, that the dungeon was super dangerous, and only A-rank mages were allowed in because the level was so high. Plus, the A-rank promotion exam was next week. Ray asked if that was still true, and Hinata said yes. So our boy announced that he would just level up and become A-rank by then. This lady, already shocked, had to admit Ray could probably pull it off with his busted skills, but she sounded like there was still a catch. The protagonist caught that right away and asked what her problem was. Hinata explained the real pain. To even qualify for the A-rank test, he had to clear a B-rank dungeon with a party first. That meant he needed to find at least one other person to team up with and beat a tough dungeon. Of course, our hero had totally forgotten about that rule. Ray checked his phone, but all he saw were messages from people saying, nope, there was no way they would party up with him. The deadline was tight, and soloing a B rank was basically suicide. So our MC was stuck, racking his brain for a way out of this mess. Just then, he heard some loud voices nearby. Some mages were roasting their teammate, calling her weak and useless. That hit a nerve for Ray, since he knew exactly how much it sucked to be treated like trash. The girl's name was Aya Ichinos, and her party was not even holding back. They called her dead weight, straight up. Aya tried to defend herself, begging them not to kick her out. Her little sister was in the hospital, and she needed the dungeon rewards to pay the bills. She promised she would do better in the next raid. The party leader told her she'd be watching, and if she messed up again, she was out for good. Aya just nodded, all nervous, and followed them out to the dungeon. Watching this, Ray got worried. He remembered that, in the future, the ponytail girl would become the Scarlet King, a legendary mage. But right now, all she has is bullying from her team. He remembered Aya had a rough path ahead, and at this point in time, she was supposed to get seriously hurt during a boss fight and end up in a coma for years. That made him freeze. Was this the day that tragedy went down? He was not sure, but she was definitely acting strange. Ray decided he was not going to let that happen, no matter what. Our hero was about to step in and change her fate. After that, they went to the dungeon. Her team ran into the boss, a scary level 45 monster called Dullahan. But instead of helping her out, the party leader did something totally insane. Bro, she actually shoved this ponytail girl right into the monster's range, using her as bait. This girl told Aya to go fight the boss all by herself, like she was some kind of throwaway piece. Aya tried to remind her that she had no chance against a monster like that on her own. But the party leader just told her that if she couldn't beat the boss alone, she was out of the team for good. Aya stood there, totally trapped. She looked like she wanted to run, but she believed she had no choice. Everything she did was for her little sister, and she just couldn't risk losing, her only way to help at home. The rest of her party just stood there, smirking and waiting to see her fail. Pretty heartless, if you ask me. So, that fire girl walked up to the boss and threw a fireball at it, hoping for, well, anything. Her fireball actually hit, but the monster didn't even flinch. It just stood there, like nothing happened. She started freaking out when she realized her attack was worthless. Suddenly, the Dullahan jumped at her with its huge sword, ready to smash her flat. The sword slammed into the ground right in front of her, sending out a massive shockwave that shattered the stone and sent poor Aya flying. She crashed to the ground, totally helpless and at the monster's mercy. Bro, that looked rough. And just when it looked like Aya was about to get totally destroyed, Ray showed up out of nowhere. He wasn't messing around either. He used his extreme body enhancement to block the monster's attack, holding back that giant sword with everything he had. This girl couldn't believe it when she saw someone actually save her at the last second. Our hero managed to push the monster back, making it stumble away for a second, and then he quickly turned to check if Aya was okay. She was basically speechless. Meanwhile, Aya's team was ticked off that some random guy just wrecked their dumb plan. They all knew the Dullahan was a nightmare of a monster, but Ray just shoved it like it was nothing. But the Dullahan was not done yet. It stood back up and let out a loud, angry roar that shook the whole room. The protagonist didn't even blink, because he already knew this thing was packing some sort of armor-boosting skill, which meant regular attacks weren't going to work. So, our MC decided it was time to steal that skill. He ran right at the boss, risking everything, just to try and touch it for skill drain. But here's the thing, when he touched the monster, nothing happened. The skill refused to activate, and he had to jump back fast before he got sliced in half. When he ran back to Aya, she nervously asked if he was okay. Ray told her not to worry, because he blocked the attack with his own sword, acting all chill, like he wasn't almost pancake meat 2 seconds ago. That's when our boy figured it out. The Dullahan's armor was the outside part. He had to touch the inside, if he wanted skill drain to work. Right then, the boss slammed its sword into the ground, sending out a giant energy blast. Ray threw up his mana barrier and yelled at Aya to stay behind him. The barrier blocked the attack, but the shockwave was so strong, it sent the other flying like paper dolls. Only the party leader was still on her feet, and she was so mad she shot an ice lance at the monster. But the Dullahan just blocked that too, and then smacked her right into a wall. So, the ice lance was garbage against this thing. Ray realized he needed something way stronger, something that could burn through the armor. He pulled out his trump card, Abyss Flame. Aya's jaw nearly hit the floor when she saw him charging up a black fireball. He chucked the black flame right at the Dullahan, just as the boss fired another energy wave at him. The two attacks met in the middle, but Ray's Abyss Flame was way too strong. It ripped through the monster's energy and slammed right into it. The black fire roasted the monster so hard that its armor and everything else just burned away. And then, the Dullahan crumbled to dust. With the monster gone, a big green mana stone dropped to the ground. But Aya was more shocked by our MC than anything else. She stammered out a thank you, still amazed that he saved her life and took out the boss in one hit. Ray just grinned and told her he was glad she was okay. But inside, our boy was feeling really proud. He actually managed to save Aya this time. Of course, the party leader dragged herself back up, looking like she just ate a lemon. She saw how strong Ray was, but her greed was even bigger. She marched right up to him and demanded the mana stone, saying her team signed up for the dungeon, so it belonged to them. Aya looked like she might explode, and she tried to remind her leader that our hero literally saved all their lives. Ray just shrugged and said he didn't mind handing over the mana stone, but only if this ponytail girl joined his party. That move shocked everyone, even Aya. The protagonist turned to Aya and told her it was her choice. He wasn't forcing her. The party leader started laughing like a maniac, saying she loved the deal and that the girl was totally free to go. She asked Aya if she was in, and Aya answered right away, saying she was now Ray's problem. The party leader grabbed the mana stone and strutted off, talking about how she got a sweet deal, trading away a useless party member. But what she didn't know, and what our boy definitely did, was that Aya was the real deal. She just hadn't found her moment yet. After the losers from Aya's old party finally took their mana stone and left, Aya turned to Ray and thanked him again for saving her. She was still a little awkward about it, like she didn't know how to act around a real hero. Our MC apologized for making her leave her party so suddenly. But honestly, our girl didn't seem to care. She told him she was probably just going to slow him down anyway. Poor Aya. Seriously. But our boy was not having any of that. He told her there was nothing to worry about and said she'd get stronger. Way stronger than the people who just ditched her. Aya's eyes went wide. She clearly didn't believe it, because she'd never imagined herself as someone with real power. Then he told her he had overheard her talking with her old party back at headquarters, but he swore it was by accident. Because of what he heard, Ray said he wanted to be her support, and he meant it. Aya looked so relieved, like someone had just lifted a mountain off her shoulders, and she told him she was happy to be in his care. Ray grinned, thinking he'd just hit the jackpot. Can you blame him? The next day, they geared up to enter a B-rank dungeon together. Aya asked if clearing this dungeon would let them take the A-rank exam, and the protagonist said it would. But he also dropped a little hint. He said there was something inside the dungeon that could help her get way stronger. Aya started getting hyped, thinking about how being strong would help her make more money for her sister's medical bills. The poor girl was almost bouncing with excitement. She was finally ready to take on the dungeon for real. They stepped into this crystal cave dungeon, and, right away, they ran into a bunch of black wolves. She nearly freaked out on the spot, but our boy told her to chill and let him handle it. He ran straight at the wolves, pumped up with extreme body enhancement, and just sliced through them like cheap paper. Aya stood back and watched, totally blown away. She realized Ray was on another level. Seriously, nobody in her old party could pull off moves like that. After clearing the way, our hero led Aya deeper into the cave, letting her know he had her back. He made her a deal. She'd follow his plan, and he'd support her as she fought. She nodded and moved up, to face a bunch of the little monsters. Sure, she was only working with basic magic, but at least she was willing to step up and give it a try. She started tossing her fireballs at the little monsters rushing her, while Ray hung back and watched. Our boy clearly had a plan. He wanted Aya to hit her limit and figure something out about herself. Things got wild quick, though. While this girl was busy blasting the small fry, some monsters crept up from behind, but Ray was already on it. He wasn't about to let anything screw up Aya's moment. Meanwhile, she was fighting hard, but these monsters just kept respawning like they were using cheat codes. Even worse, one of them bit her arm, and she started panicking about her mana running out. That girl was really having a rough day. While she was busy feeling sorry for herself, she noticed our hero off in the distance, fighting even nastier monsters, all just to make things easier for her. That hit her hard. She realized she couldn't keep whining. She had to actually do something if she wanted to grow stronger, like Ray said. Aya focused, got all her feelings boiling, and then chucked a lot of fireballs that were more intense than anything she'd ever done before. And get this, her mana wasn't even getting low. She was so shocked, she almost forgot she was in the middle of a fight. Our MC stood there with this proud look because he saw what was happening. Aya's true strength was her huge mana pool, and she'd finally realized it. Then, like a boss, she unlocked her new skill, Blast Furnace. Before they knew it, they reached the boss's room. There was a giant level 52 slime waiting for them, just chilling. Ray said this was Aya's time, and told her to use that new skill. She nodded and let loose her Blast Furnace. The firepower was so nuts that she was scared. The protagonist was totally cool with it, though. He knew that Blast Furnace would boost her fire skills big time, even if it meant burning through her mana like crazy. But then, even Ray had to admit this was next level. Aya's firepower filled the whole room, turning it red, and the slime boss didn't stand a chance. She erased it, just like that. After the boss went down, Ray came over and congratulated her for killing it so hard. She was still shaking a bit, but then she started laughing, because even she couldn't believe how powerful she'd just become. Aya didn't waste a second before thanking our boy, because she knew it was his support that helped her get there in the first place. Once they finished the B-rank dungeon, the two of them returned to the surface. Aya pointed out that clearing it meant they could take the A-rank exam now. Ray confirmed it, but honestly, our MC was just itching to crush the exam and move on to his next plan. On exam day, they both showed up at the association. Hinata was there and explained that they'd need to have their combat abilities measured and would be paired up with someone for a mock battle. Ray was more than ready. He wanted that A-rank badge bad. Aya was excited too, even cheering our hero on and telling him to give it his all. But of course, nothing goes perfectly. They bumped into Aya's old party, the same jerks as before, with their annoying leader, Isoyama. The old party started trash-talking her for even trying the exam. That was when our boy stepped up and said Aya wasn't going to lose to cowards like them. Isoyama just laughed and started mocking Ray too, saying she could get way better party members than useless Aya. Then the old party's supposed better party member walked up, and it turned out to be a lady named Aono Yuri. Ray got super tense. He remembered from his past life that Yuri was basically a monster. She once soloed a dungeon, so tough, most people would have died just walking in. That run made her famous, and judging by the way things looked, our MC figured her ability was already par to A rank. Yeah, not the kind of person you wanted to mess with. Yuri walked right up to Ray, giving him a look like she was sizing him up for a fight. She told him that he seemed interesting, which totally caught our hero off guard. He just stared at her like, what the hell was going on? Aya noticed how weird Ray was acting and called his name, trying to snap him out of it. The second Yuri heard that ponytail girl say our boy's name, she had this little light bulb moment and realized he was Kai's brother. On top of that, she already heard that Kai lost to him. That news hit Ray like a truck. He had no idea the rumors had spread that far. Aya's jaw dropped too, and she couldn't help but ask him if it was really true that he beat Kai. Yuri turned back to Ray and, in the most chill way, told him that even if he was impressive, there was absolutely no way he could beat her. She said Kai, the so-called Purple King, was still weaker than her. Our MC knew he was in for a challenge. Dude, the confidence coming off her was insane. Before the tension could boil over, everyone gathered at the training center for the next test, the big golem beatdown. The association had a special golem covered in some super hard rock, and the mages were told to give it everything they had. Our hero was up first. He stood in front of the golem and got ready, making a fireball in his hand. All the other mages in the room started cracking up, saying only an idiot would use fire against something made of metal. He knew using fire was useless, but he had a plan. He dashed toward the golem, and right when he got close, he pulled off his trick. He mixed his fire magic with an ice attack, turning it into a fire lance. Bro, the fire lance hit the golem's head. And boom, the whole thing shattered, leaving nothing but smoke. The examiner ran over to check and said the golem was officially toast. Now, all those mages who laughed at Ray were just murmuring in shock, because they never expected him to one-shot that thing. Even Yuri looked impressed, saying our hero's combo was next level. Ray couldn't help himself. He was grinning, like a kid who just pulled off the best prank ever. Next up was Aya, and she had to take the mana pool test. She went to grab the crystal ball, but her old party started talking trash, saying she should be embarrassed for even being there. But then the device lit up, showing off the ponytail girl's crazy mana amount, and everyone in the room just stared. Isoyama started yelling that she must be cheating. Yeah, sure, keep telling yourself that. Afterwards, with all the boring stuff out of the way, the examiner announced it was time for the mock battles. For the first match, it was Aya versus Isoyama. Our girl kept her cool, while Isoyama looked like she was about to explode with excitement, eager to teach her a lesson. Once the fight started, this bastard fired a bunch of ice needles at Aya. She just blew them up with a massive fireball, sending ice shards everywhere. Isoyama's eyes almost popped out of her head. She was not ready for that, but Aya was just getting started. The red girl whipped up another fireball and sent it flying at Isoyama. That bitch, thinking she was slick, put up a mana barrier and started bragging that blocking Aya would be easy and she'd counterattack right after. But then, our girl didn't stop. She kept launching fireball after fireball, smashing Isoyama's barrier over and over. The bully's so-called confidence disappeared as fast as her barrier broke, and she turned to run away. Not a great idea. Aya's attack sent some rubble flying, and one big chunk smacked her right on the head, dropping her to the ground. The examiner rushed in to stop the fight and declared this ponytail girl the winner. Bro, Isoyama looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. She just couldn't deal with the fact that Aya had totally passed her up. Our girl came back from the fight with her face glowing, and Ray gave her some serious props for how awesome she did. Aya said she still couldn't believe she won, but she wished him good luck, since he was up next, against Yuri, no less. That blue girl was straight up calm as ever, and she told Ray to come into the arena. As they got ready, Yuri asked him if he had a special reason for taking the exam. He stayed silent for a second, so this girl said she could tell he looked way more serious than the other mages. Ray finally answered that he had something he needed to do, so he couldn't let Yuri stop him, no matter what. She liked his spirit and, just for fun, let off a little bit of her crazy strong aura, letting our boy know she was not someone to mess with. Yuri was honestly impressed by that kind of confidence. She just grinned and said they should stop talking and get to the fight already. Oh man, this was about to get wild. Yuri was the first to start things off, and she really didn't hold back. She sent a bunch of mana blades flying at our hero. The poor guy pulled out his sword and tried to block them, but it wasn't easy at all. Turned out, the blue girl was using a skill called mana conversion, which let her control her mana however she wanted. That was bad news for Ray, because suddenly Yuri hit him with a huge attack that almost smashed him flat. Somehow, our MC managed to dodge at the last second. She gave him this evil grin, saying he was lucky not to be toast already. Ray had enough of getting pushed around though. He made up his mind to fight back instead of just running. He dashed toward her, but Yuri was not about to let him get close. She fired off more long-range attacks, but our hero threw up his mana barrier, yeah, the one he stole, and blocked them all. Then he sprinted in and swung his sword super hard, hoping to take her head off, but she just jumped back like it was nothing. She was still in the air when Ray tried to finish things with his fire lance. But nope, Yuri used that same mana conversion skill to make a shield. Her shield totally blocked his fire lance, and she even said he gave it a good try. The protagonist started sweating because it felt like her defense had 0 weak points. He could see now that Yuri was an absolute monster. But she wasn't done showing off. She fired a bunch of long-range beams at Ray, forcing our boy to run around the arena like a maniac. While Ray ran, he couldn't help but think these attacks were a real pain. Yuri started to mock him, saying that if he thought he could win just by running away, he was dreaming. Our MC finally turned to face her, and she locked right on, ready to finish him off. It looked like it was over, but Ray was no dummy. He had something planned. Just when it looked like he was about to get hit, he powered up with his physical enhancement and sliced through every single attack that came his way. Yuri was totally shocked. Of course, she still wasn't out of tricks. The blue girl admitted This was the first time she'd seen anyone handle 3 colors at once. But then she dropped a bomb and told him that she, too, could use body enhancement. She activated it, and then, get this, summoned a huge scythe with her main skill. Suddenly, she disappeared right in front of Ray's eyes, and before he knew it, she was behind him. Our hero nearly lost his head, but managed to spin around fast enough to block the scythe. The attack threw him backward, and with Yuri moving so fast, Ray found himself on the defensive again, just trying not to get owned. Our protagonist was freaking out a bit inside. He couldn't believe how crazy strong this girl was, so he decided to take a risk. He let Yuri get close and then grabbed her hand. She just laughed at him, saying there was nothing he could do with that. But then she realized something was totally wrong. Her power was draining out of her. Ray had just stolen her body enhancement skill right from under her nose. She stumbled back, feeling her strength leave her, and Ray saw his chance. He landed a massive blow straight to her chest. Yuri coughed up in pain and hit the ground, unable to believe our boy had been hiding so much power. With that poor girl down and unable to fight, the match was over. Ray was declared the winner. Later on, Yuri woke up in the hospital, and who did she see? Ray and Aya are standing right by her bed. The two were super happy she was okay again. The blue girl admitted, kind of surprised, that she totally lost the fight and had not expected our hero to be so strong. She asked why he came to visit. Looking pretty humble, Ray bowed his head and asked if Yuri would mind joining his party. That was a shocker for her, but he explained that after their fight, she'd also gotten promoted to A rank, and he thought they needed her if they wanted to conquer any tough dungeons. Ray was still making his case when she just started laughing, calling him a really interesting guy. She didn't drag it out and told him she was cool, following his lead. Our boy was pumped, and they shook hands to make it official. Suddenly, the ground started shaking like crazy. Ray freaked out, wondering what the hell was going on. He didn't know it, but way underground, Kronos was trying to break free from his prison and needed just a bit more power to do it. When the shaking finally stopped, our protagonist remembered how, in his last life, earthquakes, like this, always happened before the Ikebukuro dungeon collapsed. He realized they were almost out of time before the dungeon break. Even if it was the hardest dungeon around, he knew they didn't really have a choice anymore. Ray told the girls his plan. He wanted them all to conquer the dungeon together. Aya and Yuri were both shocked because this dungeon was infamous for being the most difficult in the area. That bold girl asked if he was saying they had to do it because of the earthquake. Ray admitted he had a really bad feeling. Plus, there were already weird monster reports. He figured it was a sign of something even worse coming. Yuri didn't really care about the details. She said she'd go wherever our boy wanted. Seeing this blue girl agree, Aya promised she was with them, too. Ray was honestly relieved and thanked them for having his back. The next day, the protagonist and his party turned in their request to tackle the Ikebukuro dungeon to Hinata. The request got approved, and they headed straight for the dungeon entrance. Being the nutcase she was, Yuri was actually excited to fight in such a dangerous place. Aya said it would be better if they had more people, but Ray told her it was impossible, since the association only had so many A-rank mages to use. He said it would be nice if they had someone called Oikawa, supposedly one of the best in Japan, before everything went wrong. But deep down, he was worried that if the dungeon broke, Kronos would return, and he was determined to stop that from happening. Right before they went in, the girls told him to stop with the formal stuff and just call them by their first names. Not wanting to waste time, Rhea agreed, and with that, the insane trio stepped into the dungeon, ready for whatever madness waited for them inside. Bro, the second these three maniacs stepped into the Ikebukuro dungeon, they ran right into a level 71 Skull Demon. Our boy could hardly believe his eyes. This thing was supposed to be a boss back in easier dungeons, but now it was just chilling at the entrance like a doorman. Seriously, what the hell was going on in here? But instead of panicking, the squad just went for it. The Skull Demon threw up a mana barrier right away, thinking it was safe. Ray figured out that breaking the barrier was their first job, so he fired off a fire lance at it. Too bad, his fire lance barely scratched the thing. Lucky for him, Aya and Yuri jumped in and hit the barrier at the same time, blasting it with everything they had. With their perfect timing, the barrier dropped, and our boy didn't waste a second. He sprinted straight for the demon and sliced it clean in half. Easy work for this team. The Skull Demon dropped a big, green mana stone, which Ray happily picked up, making sure to tell the girls they crushed that timing. Now, after all the fighting, Yuri finally decided to ask the big question she'd been holding in. How on earth was Ray able to use so many skills? Our MC paused, then admitted he had something called skill drain. The girls looked at him, totally lost. So, he explained that just by touching someone, he could steal their skill. When Yuri realized what that meant for their duel, she looked kind of freaked out, but Ray told her he'd already given her skill back. Aya, on the other hand, was about to pass out from shock. She never expected him to be that broken. But, after thinking it through, she realized this was why Ray wanted them to take on the dungeon. And she figured as long as he was around, they'd be safe. Still, Aya promised herself that she wasn't going to drag the team down. With everyone ready, the trio headed deeper inside. After a bunch of fights, they almost arrived at the boss's room. Aya pointed out that the ground was shaking even harder now, and she asked if they were really ready to face whatever was waiting. Ray told her that everyone had leveled up a bunch on the way here, so he was sure they could pull it off. Aya thought about it and agreed. She said she was going to prove she belonged in this team. But then, out of nowhere, something grabbed Aya from behind before anyone could blink. They spun around and saw this absolute nightmare. A level 89 Grim Reaper. That thing was supposed to be the boss, but it was already outside the boss's room, making Ray's blood run cold. Our poor guy started freaking out, thinking nothing here was making sense, but he knew they were in serious trouble. Still, there was no time for panic. He told Yuri it looked bad, but they had to save Aya fast. He yelled to that ponytail girl, asking if she was okay. She managed to shout back that she was fine. She'd thrown up a mana barrier right before the Grim Reaper could crush her. But Ray was sweating, since, even with Aya's huge mana pool, there was a limit to how long she could hold out. If he used Abyss Flame, he could hit the boss, but he'd also torch our girl, so that was a no-go. The only play was to somehow get her out without frying everybody. Ree turned to Yuri and said he'd try to get the boss's attention, then told her to save Aya while he distracted it. With the plan set, they charged in. Our hero put himself right in the monster's face and almost got flattened by a tentacle. He dodged just in time, but the tentacle smashed the floor like it was nothing. At this point, he figured if he took a direct hit, he'd be toast. Right when he thought he was safe, another tentacle shot at him from behind. Aya totally lost it, screaming Ray's name, thinking he was done for. But our MC barely managed to use Mana Hand to escape. And man, he was sweating buckets. Meanwhile, Yuri made her move. She got close to the Grim Reaper and swung her Mana Scythe, aiming for a weak spot. But her attack just bounced off, doing nothing. That's when they both realized this boss had some kind of buff skill, making it super tough. She had to fall back fast before she got squished. Ray checked if Yuri was okay, and she said she was holding up. But both of them agreed something was off. Tentacle monsters were supposed to have weak defense. This was the first time our boy had seen one tank a hit like that. Plus, it was super weird that the boss was outside its room. But right now, they were too busy dotting sort his rage tentacles to care about the why. Turns out, Kronos was making things extra nasty behind the scenes, but our team had no clue. Stuck inside her barrier, Aya started blaming herself. She thought everything was her fault for being too passive and always counting on Ray. While our hero and Yuri were running on fumes, pretty much out of mana, thanks to all the earlier fights, the red girl was desperately searching her brain for a way to help. Just when Ray was starting to lose hope, he suddenly remembered something and yelled at Aya to use her mana fusion. She was so shocked she almost forgot to breathe. And even Yuri thought that was a dumb idea. Mana fusion was supposed to be useless and burn through crazy amounts of mana. Our protagonist got it. People used to think the skill sucked in his last life too. But he also knew that a certain genius mage had figured out how to make it work. The funny part? That genius was Aya herself. Only, she hadn't done it yet in this timeline. She was feeling shaky since she'd never used mana fusion for real before. But, seeing Ray trust her, she decided she was ready to give it a shot. So, right away, Aya fired off her mana fusion skill at Ray and Yuri, just like they planned. At first, that blue girl was confused, but then she noticed her mana bar was actually filling up instead of emptying. She figured out something crazy was happening. But our boy just grinned because he already knew the secret. Mana fusion worked by sharing the user's mana with the party. But only people with a giant mana pool could even use it right. The girl started getting super excited when she realized she was helping. But then it hit her. Her mana sharing was too weak. Turns out, that was because her mana barrier was blocking the flow. She realized what she had to do. So she dropped her barrier, even though that meant the monster could grab her again. The instant her shield dropped, the Grim Reaper snatched her up, but this time, she pumped all her remaining mana straight to them. She barely managed to tell them that it was up to them now, sounding totally wiped out. Aya's sacrifice totally fired the other two up. They both got this look in their eyes like they weren't about to let their teammate down. With their mana restored, they charged the Grim Reaper like maniacs, slashing through tentacles left and right with their boosted enhancement skills. Ray shouted at Yuri to keep the pressure going so they could get to her. Just as Ray was getting close, the monster switched it up, dragging Aya out of reach again. He figured out right away that they weren't getting anywhere like this. But that blue girl wasn't ready to quit. She told him she'd make a path for him no matter what. Next thing you know, Yuri cranked up her main skill and unleashed so much aura that she straight up made stairs out of energy. Yeah, magic stairs. Ray didn't even waste a second. He thanked her and dashed up the glowing steps like a man on a mission. The Grim Reaper tried to block him with more tentacles, but he just chopped them to pieces, slicing his way through. He got to Aya, cut her loose from the monster's grip, and carried her back down. On the ground, Ray checked if our girl was okay. She slowly opened her eyes and managed a weak smile, saying our boy was just as crazy, impressive as ever. Yuri ran over and told Aya that she actually saved the whole squad with her skill, and that she had some insane guts. The team had rescued this ponytail girl, but the fight wasn't over yet. The boss started regrowing its tentacles. This blue girl realized they were in big trouble again and asked Ray what the plan was. Our MC told her to trust him and leave it all to him. Even if she thought he was a little nuts, she agreed, and Ray charged the monster, this time, without even picking up a weapon. Yuri watched, shocked, as the protagonist sprinted straight at the Grim Reaper, barehanded. The monster tried to block him with another tentacle, but he hit overclock mode, doubling his power and lighting himself up with a wild, dark aura. Then, our MC fired off the Abyss Flame skill, blasting the Grim Reaper in the face so hard that its head just split open. The monster hit the ground, totally destroyed. Kronos, the big, bad, evil boss, pulling strings from the shadows, was watching and could not believe his monster just got wrecked. But even after all that, Kronos was not about to let Ray and his squad stroll out of there, alive. While everyone was catching their breath and thinking it was finally over, this freaky black goo started leaking from the dead boss and shot straight at Aya. It almost stabbed her right through, but our hero yanked her out of the way, just in time. Ray took one look at the stuff and realized it was getting stronger. So, he yelled for everyone to run for the exit. The whole crew took off, hoping they could outrun whatever this sludge was. He was sweating it, hoping they'd make it out, since they'd already stopped the dungeon from collapsing. But just as they were about to reach the door, the evil goop closed the distance and was ready to swallow them. Right at the last second, a golden shield dropped down and blocked the attack. A tough-sounding voice told them to step aside. They turned around, and who do they see? It was Oikawa Hikaru, the absolute legend. The girls were stunned, especially since Ray had name-dropped that blonde guy before. Our MC confirmed that this was the same S-rank mage he wanted help from. Oikawa was the Yellow King in his previous life, stronger than all of them put together. Ray knew they'd be dead meat if this shield boy hadn't shown up with his insane barrier magic. Oikawa just winked, saying he was glad he made it in time. He explained he'd been handling another dungeon for the country when he got a call from someone. Our boy thought maybe it was Hinata. Then he shocked our hero by saying he knew about him because he was Kai's brother. Ray braced for trouble, but Oikawa told him not to sweat it. He was just interested, that was all. Our MC finally relaxed and thanked him for the save, but Oikawa just brushed it off like it was nothing. He said Ray must have done something wild to beat that boss. Right then, the monster's mana stone dropped out. He was so shocked by how huge it was that he tossed it to our boy, who almost dropped it. That flashy dude gave Ray a little congrats and said he'd be keeping an eye out for him. Then, he strode out of the dungeon with the squad following behind, probably looking like they'd been through a tornado. Back at the association building, Aya commented that Oikawa was definitely an interesting guy, and the protagonist agreed, still looking a bit starstruck. The second Hinata spotted them, she started full-on screaming, demanding to know if everyone was all right. The woman was losing her mind because they'd taken way too long in that death trap. She scolded Ray for just charging in after Hanky'd be his form, especially since this dungeon was the worst of the worst. Hinata then asked how far they got, probably expecting them to say they were still on the first floor or something. When our boy said they'd actually cleared the dungeon, the administrator girl and all her assistants absolutely lost it. The whole building started screaming like they'd seen a ghost. Bro, talk about a legendary run. The news about the Ikebukuro dungeon being conquered spread like wildfire everywhere. People are going crazy, trying to get in touch with whoever managed to clear the place. Reporters swarmed Aya, and she told them that she finally had enough money for her sister's medical bills. She also thanked Rei for giving her such a huge chance. Meanwhile, over in the salty corner, Isoyama and her old buddies watched all this, looking like they'd just swallowed a bug. Isoyama still wanted to believe that our girl had cheated somehow, even though everyone else knew what was up. Rei's brother, Kai, was not having a good day either. He looked totally pissed when he heard that our protagonist, of all people, was the one who did it. The news about Rei went all over the place, mostly because people used to call him colorless, and now he was suddenly famous. Group chats blew up, with people calling each other out and saying maybe they should apologize for talking trash about our MC before. While everyone was busy freaking out about Rei's new rep, the poor guy himself was only thinking about how he got this far, thanks to his friends. He knew he still needed to get a lot stronger. 3 days later, our boy showed up at the association building because Hinata had summoned him. The girls came along too, and the whole squad was stunned when that receptionist girl said they had received an official request to conquer another dungeon. Aya couldn't believe it, since they'd only just become A-rank mages. Hinata explained that, because of their last big achievement, the association was letting them take on requested missions now, which was a really rare thing. Usually, mages had to ask for permission to explore, but this time, they actually got picked. This ponytail girl grinned at Rei and told him that everyone was counting on him. He shook his head and said that it was the whole party that mattered, not just him. Our boy then wanted to know who sent the request, but the administrator girl said she couldn't tell them, since the higher-ups wanted to keep it a secret. Of course, Yuri was instantly fired up and said they should take the mission just because it sounded like fun. Rei agreed to go along with it, since the association was officially involved, so it probably wasn't anything shady. Right then, Hinata casually mentioned that an S-rank mage would be joining them on the mission. The next day, the crew headed out to meet this mysterious S-rank mage. Aya was curious about who it would be. And then, boom, they ran right into Oikawa. She's jaw basically hit the floor, and Rei was just as surprised. As they stepped into the dungeon together, our hero admitted he never would have guessed that the blonde guy would be their escort. Oikawa just grinned and said he already knew about the job, but he wanted to keep it a surprise. He also told them that he was kind of excited for this mission, since the whole world was watching. Aya whispered to Rei that the flashy boy was way too chill for a top mage, and our MC agreed, but told her not to forget that the guy was still S-rank, no matter how goofy he acted. Rei asked Oikawa if it was true about a tricky mechanism inside the dungeon. This guy nodded and explained that the scout team had reported a big wall of fire blocking the way. Our hero wanted to know how they were supposed to get past that, and Oikawa just shrugged like it was nothing, saying he had his barrier skill. So, the wall was no big deal as long as he was around. Rei had to wonder if this dude was a little too confident and maybe thought the dungeon would be easy. Almost like Oikawa read his mind, he told our protagonist that the party was about to see just how cool he really was, because he'd be carrying the squad on his back. But, right after that, a huge wave of monsters crashed onto the scene. Rei told everyone to get ready to fight, and, deep down, he was itching to see what an S-rank mage could really do. Suddenly, some bug monster came at them, and, bro, Oikawa didn't even move. He just sat down in the corner, looking like he'd seen a ghost. The guy actually told the trio to handle the monsters because he got a phobia of insect-type monsters. Aya called him out, reminding him about all the big talk. But Rei just told his team to ignore the coward and focus on the monsters. The trio jumped into action, throwing out long-range attacks left and right. Yuri charged in, saying these new monsters were nothing compared to what they'd already fought. The girls took out most of the enemies, and our MC finished off the stragglers with a fire lance. Oikawa just stared, totally stunned, like he didn't expect that at all. As soon as the fight was over, our girl cheered Rei. That flashy boy finally crawled out of his hiding spot and said he hated bugs, so he was glad the team saved him. But, plot twist, suddenly, some wolves jumped out from behind and lunged at him. This time, Oikawa got serious, snapping his fingers and trapping them inside a glowing square box, crushing them in an instant. Ray and the girls just gawked at him. He asked what kind of skill that was, and this blonde guy said it was called Square Box, just one of his many barrier skills. He explained that it worked great on smaller monsters, but not on huge bosses. Ray was amazed because he'd only heard of this skill before and never actually seen it with his own eyes. After that, Oikawa said they should keep moving. Our hero followed behind him, still in shock, realizing Oikawa was the real deal. That guy was basically everything people said an S-rank mage should be. Soon, they came to the wall of fire, just like in the reports. Even from a distance, they could feel the crazy heat. The flashy boy just stepped up, made a path right through the flames with his barrier magic. The team walked through, pumped up and ready. Not long after, they found a tunnel leading to the boss's room. Ray said they were all good to go, so they moved in together. What nobody knew was that Oikawa was watching our MC closely, waiting to see if he was actually legit or just a big fake. Inside the boss's room, Ray immediately complained about how insanely hot it was, so obviously, their next enemy was going to be something fierce. Then, the boss stepped out. It was a level 68 flame garm, and just seeing it sent shivers down Ray's spine. Our hero was in for another wild fight, and honestly, I don't blame him for feeling nervous. That thing looked like pure trouble. As soon as the Flamegar boss started walking toward them, Ray totally freaked out. He told his team to put up their mana barriers right away, but Oikawa just grinned and said there was no need for that. The monster didn't waste any time. It blasted them with a huge wave of fire breath. But bro, the shield boy just blocked the whole thing with his barrier magic like it was no big deal. Our boy, honestly, could not believe what he was seeing. And Oikawa just told him to leave defense to him and focus on attacking instead. Ray took a second to think about what to do next. He understood that the blonde guy's barrier was tough, but if that flame attack got even crazier, the barrier might break. He thought about using his abyss flame, but then realized it just wasn't going to work. The monster was too fast, plus that skill ate up a ton of mana, and a boss-level monster like this needed another plan. So, our MC decided to take the lead. He told the girls to watch for any openings and attack. With body enhancement turned on, he jumped right at the monster, pretending he was going straight for its face. Instead, he juked the boss and landed a solid hit from behind. They had his back, sending their own attacks at the boss. But the flame garm kept moving fast, proving that this fight wasn't going to be easy. The poor guy was already sweating buckets from the insane heat, and he knew if the fight dragged on, they would be toast. Literally. Oikawa just waited in the back, eyes locked on Ray, clearly curious what our boy would do next. Now that things were getting rough, Ray came up with a plan fast. He told Yuri and Aya to focus their attacks on the monster's feet, not its body. The girls were all for it, quickly started blasting the Flamegarm's legs. Aya even hit it with her stone bullet skill, which forced the boss to jump around like crazy to dodge. But our hero knew the truth. Once the thing was in the air, it could never dodge a real attack. He leaped after it, ice coating his sword, and for a second, even Oikawa was blown away by the move. With the flame garm stuck in the air, our hero landed a perfect critical hit, sending the monster smashing to the ground. Total victory. The girls rushed over, all excited and happy for him. But Ray told them it was thanks to their teamwork that they pulled it off. That flashy boy nodded, clearly impressed, and said in his mind that he was exactly as awesome as the report said. Still, Oikawa could tell our boy was hiding some of his real power. Ray suggested they go back to the association and give their report, but this blonde guy stopped him. Suddenly, Oikawa pulled out his square box and said he wanted to test him. He told Ray that the box could be used to capture monsters, but it was also great for training. He came clean, saying he wanted to see our hero's true power, so he wanted Ray to fight whatever monster was inside the box. Oikawa promised he would reseal the monster if things got out of hand, but our protagonist would have to let him know if that happened. At this point, our boy finally understood why the blonde dude was tagging along. He didn't know what the S-rank mage really wanted, but a shot at more battle experience? There was no way Ray was going to turn that down. He agreed to the test, and Oikawa popped open the square box. And then, dude, it was nightmare fuel. A terrifying black shadow oozed out of the box, changing shape like some horror movie monster. Oikawa was totally hyped to see what it would become. The shadow took on the form of our MC's greatest fear, Kronos. That's right, the actual Kronos, walking right out of the box. This flashy boy couldn't believe his eyes. Aya and Yuri were totally lost. wondering why the shadow monster suddenly looked like a person. But just by looking at it, they could tell this was no normal monster. Oikawa quietly wondered to himself if Ray had fought something like this before. Meanwhile, our MC was feeling the pressure for real. Even though this wasn't the real Kronos, he could still feel that insane aura coming off the thing. But he knew he had to get it together, so he forced himself forward, aiming to land the first hit. Kronos calmly pulled out a long red sword and blocked Ray's attack like it was nothing. Instead of feeling scared, our hero actually got pumped up by the challenge. Before Kronos could strike back, Ray dodged and leapt away. Suddenly, he saw Kronos preparing to attack him. At the last second, Ray jumped out of the way, and the ground right behind him exploded from some invisible shockwave attack. The whole squad was stunned. They hadn't even seen the enemy move. Oikawa was amazed that our hero managed to dodge, but what nobody else knew was that Ray only pulled that off because he had fought Kronos before his time rewind. The protagonist quickly created an ice spear and charged at the villain, but when he got close, he saw Kronos smiling right at him. That threw Ray off for half a second. A big mistake. That big baddie countered him so hard he went flying. Aya screamed, thinking it was over. But our boy took the attack and got back up. Yeah, that looked painful. But Ray still wasn't out yet. Man, our boy was starting to sweat bullets. He totally didn't expect Kronos to just brush off his last attack like it was nothing. Aya noticed how ugly things were getting and told Oikawa that this was going way too far. The flashy boy agreed, finally ready to end it, and reached out to pull the shadow back into his magic box. But then, surprise, nothing happened. Oikawa tried again, and his face changed. Bro, when even he looks scared, you know it's bad. And the shadow just wouldn't listen. That's when everyone realized something was super wrong. This guy was actually nervous, saying, "The box never acted up like this before." Yuri and Aya decided to stop waiting around. They rushed in, going full attack mode, before Ray could even shout at them to stop. Both of them launched their best skills, but Kronos just smirked and swatted their attacks away like they were flies. The next thing you knew, a huge counterattack hit them, blasting the girls back so hard they crashed into the ground, shaking the whole place. Poor boy could only stare in shock, praying his friends weren't done for. Oikawa apologized, looking more serious than ever. He promised Ray he'd fix this mess and threw up his barrier magic to trap the enemy. But, dude, the moment the flashy boy finished his spell, Kronos gave that evil smile and just shattered the barrier like it was made of glass. Now, both of them were really freaking out. If even an S-rank barrier got destroyed that easily, they were in deep trouble. The guy didn't even try to hide it, telling Ray they might all get wiped if this kept up. But our MC has been in tough spots before. He took a breath and started thinking. He noticed that the fake Kronos wasn't just strong. It was copying everything about the real Kronos, even the crazy skills. Ray realized the monster must be using some weird copy ability, taking on all the powers from our boy's memories. That's when the solution hit him, and he told Oikawa to back off for a second. Ray remembered how, in his past life, he just kept running from the villain and never fought back. He decided he wasn't about to make the same mistake again. So he powered up and leaped straight at the monster, even though his hands were shaking a little. Kronos swung his sword with insane force, but our protagonist dodged at the last moment and closed the distance. He finally got close enough to touch the monster, then activated Skill Drain with everything he had. There was a wild surge of energy, and suddenly the monster just crumbled into dust. Bro. Oikawa was standing there frozen, sweat dripping down his face. He kept asking himself, what the hell kind of move Ray just pulled off? For real. The guy looked like he'd seen a ghost. That was when the big shot S rank started seriously wondering just who our MC really was. 3 days later, Yuri and Oikawa were walking together through a weird building. The place looked mysterious. They started talking about the past few days, and this blue girl joked that the flashy guy should just be grateful. Ray didn't roast him for letting things get so out of hand. Oikawa agreed, but he told Yuri that our protagonist was way more impressive than anything she had written in her reports. They soon made it to a giant door, and when it opened, the Blue King, Hojo Itsuki, was waiting inside a huge room. Both of them gave him a deep bow, but Hojo told them to relax and not bother with all the formal stuff. Apparently, that blue boss had been away for a while, traveling to other countries and clearing dangerous dungeons everywhere. The shield boy was totally surprised at how much work Hojo took on, but the boss just shrugged and said the association bigwigs never gave him a break, and someone had to do the hard jobs. Turns out, the dungeon Hojo had just cleared was as brutal as the Ikebukuro dungeon. Even Yuri was impressed, saying the Blue King had taken on 10 of those crazy dungeons by himself. Not gonna lie, that sounded insane. Hojo decided to get down to business. He said he wanted to hear everything about Rei. So, Oikawa and Yuri started to spill the details, telling him everything they knew about our hero. The blue boss was impressed, and this flashy boy agreed, saying Rei might actually be even stronger than him, and he wasn't joking. Hojo was surprised that our boy was not just good at fighting, but could also steal other people's skills. What a cheat. What Hojo and Oikawa didn't realize was that Yuri was holding back a few more secrets about Rei. She knew if she told them everything, their brains would probably explode. This big boss admitted that the protagonist was definitely worth keeping an eye on, and before the meeting ended, he asked them for a favor. Later, Rei and Aya were strolling through the association building, probably just chilling, when suddenly Hinata came running out and yelled for our hero. She looked super stressed. Rei rushed over, asking her what was up. Hinata gave him this sad look and said she had no idea what he did to deserve this, but she had some bad news. Our MC just asked her straight up what the problem was, and she told him the Blue King wanted to meet him in person. Next thing you know, Rei was heading to Hojo's palace. As soon as he saw the blue boss, our boy was starstruck. Hojo wasn't just any king, he was the true color king in our boy's old life, the strongest of them all, always protecting the weak and saying the coolest stuff. Rei had always looked up to him and wanted to be just like him. But in the past, everything went wrong. Hojo died as a hero during a brutal dungeon collapse, sacrificing himself to save everyone else. That's why our hero was so shocked and nervous to meet him now, wondering what the legendary Blue King could possibly want with a guy like him. Rei was still overthinking in Hojo's fancy room when, out of nowhere, Yuri appeared. Man, she just popped up with Oikawa standing there too, and poor boy almost jumped out of his seat, but the Blue King told Rei to chill because he was about to explain everything. Turns out, Oikawa and Yuri weren't just there to hang out, they were actually scouts. Not just any scouts either. Hojo revealed that these two were members of the Apostles of the Holy Staff. Bro, our hero had heard that name before, and it sent a shiver down his spine. Aya jumped in, explaining it for him. That was an elite team, directly under the Blue King himself. Basically, the real big leagues. Then that blue boss dropped another bomb. He admitted that he was the one who asked Rei to clear the dungeon, and that the blonde guy was sent to keep an eye on him. Suddenly, it all made sense to him. They just wanted to see what our MC could really do, which was why they threw him at that crazy monster. Yuri even confessed that she joined up with Rei's squad just because it looked fun. Yeah, she was wild like that. Hojo decided to be super honest now. He said he was interested in our hero. He wanted him to join the Apostles. But there was a catch. A mage with more than one color of mana is quite doubtful, since they often had too many secrets. So, he wanted to see Rei's true nature first. Then the real question came. The big boss wanted to know what Rei truly wanted. Our boy took a second, thinking hard about it. He finally told Hojo that he wanted to get stronger than anyone else. This Blue King grinned and asked if that meant Rei wanted to be both the strongest mage and the king of a color. Even someone who could surpass Hojo himself. Our protagonist thought about it for another moment and said that, yeah, he wanted to be even stronger than him. You could see that Hojo was loving that answer, and then officially asked Rei if he joined the Apostles of the Holy Staff. Both Rei and Aya just stood there, stunned. The Blue King added that he was sure our hero would do great with all the other top mages. Rei accepted, and Oikawa told him to follow along. Soon enough, they walked into a room packed with elite mages. These were the real Apostles of the Holy Staff, all under Hojo's command. The first guy to speak was Kurahashi. He started whining about how our MC looked way too young for this squad. The others had to remind Kurahashi that he was basically Rei's age too. He just acted dramatic when he got excited. Then, Oikawa told our boy to sit down, so he could explain Hojo's new mission to everyone. Here it was. They had to clear not one, but 2 high-level dungeons, both rated for people over level 65. So the squad was splitting up. Oikawa, Yashiro, Shiro, and Azuma would hit up the Makuari dungeon, while Rei's crew would go for the Tama dungeon, and Kurahashi would be joining them. That's when Kurahashi totally lost it. He freaked out about being paired with our hero's team, asking what he did to deserve this. Yuri started teasing him, asking if he hated the idea, and he admitted it bluntly. Oikawa tried to calm him, saying, Ray was strong enough, and, plus, he had 3 colors of mana, but this hot-blooded guy was not having it. He argued that having a lot of mana colors didn't prove anything. After all, our MC's brother Kai had that too. Ray almost choked when he heard his brother's name come up. Kurahashi explained that Kai was also a member of the Apostles, called the Purple King, but to the real squad, he was nothing special. Our boy remembered Yuri had said almost the same thing before. Oof, Kai's reputation had really dropped. This nosy boy just kept running his mouth, saying again that having multiple colors didn't mean Ray was strong. He even accused Oikawa of carrying Ray through the Ikebukuro dungeon, pretty much calling our MC a weakling. That was it, Aya snapped. She yelled that Kurahashi was dead wrong, and that he had no right to judge Ray until he fought beside him and saw his power firsthand. The ponytail girl's outburst seemed to finally get through to the hot-blooded boy, who agreed to join our hero's team for the dungeon. With everyone on board, the blonde guy said nothing would change. The plan was set. He told Kurahashi he'd get to see Ray's magic himself. The nosy boy just grumbled that Oikawa was hyping Ray up way too much, but whatever. Our MC knew this was his real test. He needed strong allies, especially when he'd have to face Kronos again. Even if Kurahashi's trash talk was annoying, he still needed him. Soon enough, they reached the Tama dungeon. It didn't even take a minute for a horde of monsters to show up. Ray tried to give the team some quick orders, telling everyone they needed to work together. But that Kurahashi just cut him off, complaining that teamwork was a pain. Then, without waiting, the guy charged in, throwing a punch so strong it made the ground explode. Aya almost got knocked off her feet by the shockwave. In one move, Kurahashi wiped out all the monsters, then turned back to the protagonist, smirking that there was no way he could copy that. Next thing you knew, the nosy boy dashed deeper into the dungeon, calling out that he was going to solo the whole thing. Ray just grinned at the girls, letting them know there was no way he was going to lose to that guy. Then, with a fire in his eyes, our hero sprinted after Kurahashi, ready to show everyone what he was really made of. Right from the start, Ray was going wild, smashing a bunch of monsters at once. Kurahashi, that cocky teammate, actually told our hero his move was getting a little better. Not exactly a big compliment, but Ray just thanked him and kept going, totally focused on the fight. Meanwhile, Aya was off to the side, complaining that everything was turning into a huge mess. Yuri just grinned and said she should be proud, because our MC was actually keeping up with Kurahashi. She explained that the guy was a monster on the battlefield, since he could use his mana again and again over a wide area. That was why Kurahashi was famous, for wiping out mobs of enemies, and no one had slain more monsters than him. Even with all that, Ray was still keeping up. The blue girl had a big smile, as she said our boy was an amazing mage. 10 minutes later, the whole squad made it to the boss's room, which left Aya with her jaw on the floor. Our protagonist could feel something changing inside him, like the competition with that nosy boy was lighting a fire in him. But then, as they stepped into the boss's room, everyone froze. Above them was this giant floating eyeball, just staring them down. Before they could even prepare, the boss started sucking in all the monsters they had just beaten. In a messed up twist, the boss absorbed all those monsters and turned into something even scarier. A massive chimera beast. Nobody had ever seen a monster like this before. Since they had no idea how it worked, Ray tried to warn Kurahashi that they needed to be careful, for once. Of course, the nosy boy ignored him completely and charged straight at the creature, acting like there was nothing to worry about. Then, Kurahashi jumped at the chimera and threw a fiery punch that left flames burning in the air. The team held their breath to see if he could one-shot the monster, but when the smoke cleared, the beast was still standing. This hot-blooded boy realized his attack got blocked by the monster's arm, and before he knew it, its other arm shot out and tried to punch him. Bro, this guy was in real trouble, about to get his head ripped off. But our hero wasn't about to let that happen. He used Mana Hand to yank Kurahashi away from danger, just in time. He checked if Kurahashi was okay, but that guy only cared about not losing to him. That's when they saw something nasty. The chimera started regenerating, fixing all the damage like it was nothing. Then the monster raised its head and began charging some kind of insane energy. Ray realized right away, and he yelled for everyone to dodge. The next second, a deadly laser shot out, blasting the spot where they'd just been. If they hadn't moved, they'd be toast. Even Kurahashi looked freaked out, but he noticed the monster couldn't shoot lasers nonstop. Yuri decided enough was enough, and said it was time to fight back. She sent a bunch of ice spears at the Chimera, but they just bounced off. That's when Yuri realized only the hot-blooded guy's fire had actually hurt the thing. Ray saw they were in a bad spot. If they kept waiting, the monster would just fire off another laser, probably even worse than before. He needed to get to the main body, but those huge arms kept blocking everything. That's when he came up with a plan. He told Aya to use mana fusion on Kurahashi. The girl was surprised but did what she was told, sending so much mana into that guy that he actually screamed. Ray told Kurahashi to attack the main body while he had this boost. Kurahashi, all powered up, jumped at the monster and blasted its body with everything he had. But even after that, the Chimera was still standing, looking angrier than before. Then, the monster started charging up for another laser attack, and the squad started to panic. But this was exactly what our hero wanted. He shot past Kurahashi and yelled that he'd cleared the way. He ran right up to the Chimera before it could fire and cooked up his own black flame, the Abyss Flame. The second the monster fired its laser, Ray unleashed his flame, which overpowered the laser and sent the damage right back at the beast. The attack was so strong, it finished off the Chimera for good. Kurahashi was left totally surprised. He had used everything he had and still couldn't finish the monster, but our MC just broke through like it was nothing. He had to admit, Ray was the real deal. Later, word got out that our protagonist had cleared the dungeon, and the whole city was buzzing about his crazy new achievement. Poor Kai was out in public when some random dude started talking trash about him, saying his younger brother was the new top dog and Kai was old news. That had to sting. When Ray and his team walked back into the Apostles building, Hojo greeted them and said they'd done a great job. He asked if the Tama dungeon was harder than the last one, and our boy said yeah, they'd run into a brand new kind of monster. Oikawa then asked Kurahashi for his opinion now that he had seen Ray fight. That guy, still acting like a brat, said our hero wasn't bad and had a good strategy, but nothing more. One of the other members scolded Kurahashi for still looking down on him even after seeing all that. The nosy boy screamed at her to shut up, but then turned around and looked at our MC. Finally, he apologized for all the trash talk and admitted that Ray was strong. Our hero just gave Kurahashi a big smile and told him he was happy he could help out, so there was no need for him to say sorry. That tsundere boy tried way too hard to act all cool and said something about how he was just doing his job. But, bro, everyone could see he was actually hyped. He just sucked at hiding it. Hojo looked pretty pleased that Kurahashi finally gave his okay to Ray. He pointed out that now nobody could complain about the protagonist being on the squad. Then the Blue King pulled out the official Apostles badge and handed it to him. Ray was now a legit member of the most powerful team. Hojo told him that he was welcome to keep working with his own party, but he asked that Ray make time for the Apostles too. They shook hands, sealing the deal. Aya was just staring in shock, like she couldn't believe it. She always knew our boy was strong, but being accepted by a top mage like Hojo, that was a whole different level. Kurahashi tried to act like some big brother and told Ray he would teach him now. Of course, Yuri immediately ruined his big moment, saying he was actually the one who needed a lesson. Kurahashi totally lost it and yelled for her to shut up. That guy just couldn't get a break. Hojo, though, was feeling good about his decision. He was glad he put Kurahashi and Ray together because it actually made them bond. Oikawa could see it too. He figured the hot-blooded guy would have complained forever if he hadn't seen our MC's strength with his own eyes. The blonde guy even thought this blue boss was insanely smart for planning it that way. Once everyone was on board with Ray joining, Hojo suddenly said he had a suggestion. He told him he should become the Black King. But our boy was not ready for this. Dude, that was wild. While all that was happening, Ray's brother, Kai, was out with his party, fighting monsters in another dungeon. But he looked like a total mess. He just didn't have the same energy as before. One of his teammates asked why he wasn't using overclock, completely forgetting that Kai didn't have that skill anymore. Still, they managed to beat the monsters after a rough fight. His party thought it was finally break time, but he dropped a bomb and told them they were going deeper into the dungeon. His friends reminded him they'd been in there for 5 days straight, but Kai just snapped at them to shut up and follow him. One dude started second-guessing if they should even be following Kai, but another guy told him to stop whining and support Kai, since he needed them now more than ever. Deep down, he was stressed about finishing the dungeon fast. He was frustrated, and his drama with Ray was definitely making things worse. It didn't help that some reporter had just bugged him about our hero, saying, Hojo recognized Ray now too. That made Kai even more pissed. He was desperate to prove to his old team that he was still the best. Somewhere else, Kronos was watching everything and getting all excited. He thought he had finally found the perfect person to use as his pawn. Bro, that did not sound good. Anyway, the whole world changed when the dungeons showed up. Being a strong mage basically made you a celebrity, and the rare ones who had 2 colors of magic were like superstars. Kai turned out to be one of those rare dual-colored mages, and his status went through the roof. People who used to ignore him suddenly chased after him. His teacher started to respect him more. All the students at school admired him, and even his parents started to fawn over him. Even the apostles, who usually acted all high and mighty, let Kai join as their youngest member ever. But the team was kind of cold to him, so Kai ended up quitting, claiming they never recognized his power. The wild part? Ray was the only one who never treated him differently. Even without talent, he always watched his brother like he wanted to catch up one day. That actually pissed Kai off, since he thought he was the chosen one, and he hated that Ray acted like he could ever catch up. That's why the purple boy always wanted to prove he was on another level. But now, things were changing, and our boy finally had a shot. One day, when Kai was walking down the street, Kurahashi popped up behind him. The nosy boy brought up the time he was kicked from the team, but Kai snapped back, saying he quit. He didn't get kicked out. He insisted that Hojo was just jealous of his talent and acted like he was the boss, instead of treating Kai as an equal. Then Kai said he heard Ray had joined the apostles, and Kurahashi asked if that was a problem. He started talking trash about our hero, even claiming that this jerk was much stronger than him. But the hot-blooded guy just told him to shut it. Kurahashi looked serious and told Kai he could believe whatever he wanted, but the truth was, Ray's power was real. He also pointed out that our MC was staying humble, even though he was a dual-colored mage, unlike Kai, who was always showing off. Kai got pissed and yelled at him, saying he was the Purple King, and that was the highest title a mage could get. He demanded that the nosy boy stop comparing him to Ray, but Kurahashi just smirked and told him he really didn't know anything. Then he dropped the bomb. Hojo himself had just recommended our boy to become a king. Yeah, that one had to hurt. When Kai heard what Kurahashi said about Ray becoming a king, this jerk looked like he was about to pass out. It finally hit him. Ray was about to be just like him, maybe even better. This red guy kept going, explaining that our MC hadn't even said yes yet, and that, unlike him, his brother wasn't chasing after titles. To finish things off, Kurahashi told Kai that Ray was already above him, which is what made him fit to be a king. Bro, that purple boy could not handle that. He totally freaked out, but there was no way he was going to admit that our protagonist was surpassing him. Then, his friends came to him and said the preparation for tomorrow's dungeon raid was completed, but his boss, still pissed off, insisted on raiding the dungeon today. Still be a person in denial, it seems. That's why the poor guy was pushing himself so hard in the dungeons. He'd been fighting for ages, way past what was smart, but he didn't care. His team tried to talk sense into him, telling him they should fight the boss tomorrow instead. Kai wasn't having any of it. He just snapped that he was the strongest and marched straight to the boss's room, fully ready to show them he was still top dog. But when he busted open those doors, what did he see? Just a boring little level 20 slime. The disappointment was real. His team, though, got nervous right away. They could tell something about this monster wasn't right. Kai didn't care. He just wanted to prove himself. So he blasted the slime with his magic and thought it was over. His teammates started cheering him on, saying he did it, but they didn't even finish before things went crazy. Out of nowhere, their heads just flew off like bowling pins, man. It happened so fast, it was insane. Kai spun around in a panic, only to see that his friends were dead. In the blink of an eye, the slime grew huge and swallowed him up. He tried to fight back, but the thing was way too strong. The slime forced itself into Kai's body, and no matter what he did, he couldn't stop it. In the end, it took him over completely. Meanwhile, Kronos was losing his mind with excitement in his prison. He was overjoyed because he finally got himself a brand new pawn. That could only mean big trouble. A few moments later, Kai woke up. But he looked totally different. He started laughing with this evil sound and said he felt amazing. On top of that, part of Kronos' seal actually broke. So things were about to get even worse. Back at the Apostles' Training Center, our MC and the gang were working hard. After some intense practice, Oikawa told everyone to take a break. Aya dashed over with a towel for Ray and said she learned a lot just from watching Kurahashi train. This tsundere boy tried so hard to look cool, but his face was basically a tomato. He couldn't hide his blush at all. Then, Kurahashi mentioned he'd run into Kai earlier. He started telling the group everything about their conversation, laughing at that bastard for still thinking he was stronger than our hero. Yuri couldn't resist poking fun at him because he was annoyed that Rei was underestimated by Kai. That nearly made the red guy faint. Yeah, she was totally right. But Rei wasn't listening. He was off in his own world, thinking about the last time he'd seen Kai, after their big fight. He started wondering when he and Kai had even started growing so far apart. Our boy was really worried things might end up the same as in his past life, and he decided he had to settle things, like real brothers. Suddenly, someone sprinted into the training room, yelling about an emergency. The Shinjuku dungeon had collapsed, and a ton of monsters were pouring out. The whole squad rushed to the scene. When they got there, they were all shocked. Monsters everywhere. Rei was extra confused because this dungeon break wasn't supposed to happen yet. So, things were getting weird. Oikawa told everyone there was no time to stand around. The Blue King was far away on another mission, so it was up to them now. He ordered the team to focus on evacuating people first. Everyone agreed and quickly got to work, saving civilians, while smashing monsters left and right. The flashy boy even set up a barrier so people could escape safely. Rei was honestly impressed. His whole team was acting like total pros, just what you'd expect from the special squad. He remembered there were a ton of casualties during this event in his last life, but now he was sure they could handle it. That's when it happened. A massive monster showed up, obviously the boss. Kurahashi's eyes lit up, thinking it was just a big target to take out. He just smiled, said that this was an easy thing for Rei. Then, our boy just rocketed at the monster first, and straight up punched it into tiny pieces. He was just about to celebrate when he heard some creepy laughter behind him. Rei froze. He knew that laugh. When he turned around, he saw Kai, except now the guy had wings and looked straight up evil, floating above them. Kai glared at our MC, telling him that he had finally found him. Rei was horrified and asked, barely believing it, why he looked that way. Kai just laughed him off, asking if our boy was talking about his weird appearance or about his plan to crush him. Suddenly, Rei felt danger behind him and barely dodged a deadly blow. This jerk taunted him, pointing out that he might have dodged, but he wondered how much longer our protagonist could keep it up. Kai kept attacking, forcing Rei on the run. Our hero even got cut on the face, and he realized something was seriously wrong with his brother. He had never seen this scum act like such a monster. As Rei kept dodging, Kai finally stopped and said he could see the look on his face, pure denial. He said everything that was happening was because of Rei. Then, that bastard claimed his monster form was all for the purpose of getting the power to kill our boy. That one hit Rei hard. Hearing his brother actually say he wanted to kill him? Yeah, that was beyond messed up. Our boy was frozen in place, totally freaked out as Kai dashed right at him, looking ready to finish him off for good. But just in time, Kurahashi came flying in and kicked Kai straight in the face, launching him way across the battlefield. For real, he had perfect timing. The dude still thought Kai was just being a jerk during a crisis, so he started yelling at him about going rogue when they were supposed to be helping with the emergency. This scum was not having it. He screamed at Kurahashi to quit messing around, but the red guy wasn't backing down. He shouted right back that Rei was his brother. So, what the hell was Kai even doing? He just laughed and said he didn't care about being brothers. He was only there to show everyone how insane his new power was. Suddenly, Kai started firing off a crazy amount of attacks. The blasts rained down everywhere, even threatening the civilians nearby. Luckily, Oikawa was on defense duty, holding up his big golden barrier to keep the people safe, which meant he couldn't help Rei and Kurahashi at all. Our hero, realizing how bad things were, yelled at Kai that, yeah, he was violent, but this was way too far. He was freaking out, not expecting his brother to go so nuts. The jerk just mocked him, calling Rei naive and telling him he was about to crush him. Then, he started throwing a huge blast of magic right at our MC and the team, bragging about how amazing his power was. Now, Rei quickly told everyone that they had to stop Kai before things got even more out of control. Kurahashi heard that, and his whole attitude changed. He stopped trying to talk sense into this scum and just launched himself right at him, clearly ready to blow him up already. The red guy managed to land a massive attack, making a giant explosion of flames. But as the smoke cleared, he realized it hadn't worked. Kai was standing there, totally fine, dot blocking the whole thing like it was nothing. By the time Kurahashi figured out this jerk was not where he expected, it was too late. Kai jammed his hand right into the red guy's chest. Ray screamed out Kurahashi's name, but it was useless. He didn't move at all. Our boy kept yelling for him, just standing there, helpless. Just as Kai was about to finish Kurahashi off for real, Oikawa jumped into the fight. He slammed down a barrier to protect this red guy and blocked the jerk's next move. The blonde guy looked so disappointed, telling him that he couldn't believe how far he'd fallen and that it was time for some payback. He wasted no time. He activated his big move, the square box, trying to trap Kai inside. Yuri rushed over, freaking out and telling Oikawa not to use that skill on a human, since it would put a ton of stress on him. But this guy told her he knew what he was doing, and he just couldn't forgive Kai for what he'd done to his friends. He tried to close the scum in, but you could tell the spell was eating him alive. Less than a minute went by before Oikawa's hands started bleeding everywhere. He realized he was taking way more damage than he expected, but he was stubborn and refused to give up, determined to seal Kai no matter what. Suddenly, Kai exploded with power, blasting energy all over the place and shattering the flashy boy's barrier like it was nothing. This bastard started laughing, telling them he was never going to let things go their way. He bragged that his body wasn't even fully powered up yet, which left Yuri stunned. She couldn't believe even Oikawa's strongest skill didn't slow him down one bit. Kai then turned like he was bored and said he was leaving. He made sure to tell Ray that, next time, he wasn't holding back. He'd kill him for real. With that, he flew off, leaving our hero standing there, questioning every decision he'd ever made. The next day, news about the attack spread everywhere. Even though the mages did their best to protect people, everyone was talking about how chaotic and terrifying the whole thing was. People from other cities were starting to panic too, worrying that monsters could show up anywhere, and thinking about running away to places with fewer dungeons. Oikawa could see that the whole society was getting nervous, but the biggest problem was definitely Kai turning evil. He started wondering what they could even do before everything went totally downhill. At some place, Hojo, the Blue King, spoke with a mysterious person, saying that he would solve the crisis. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Aya, Yuri, and Ray were watching over Kurahashi. Our MC looked absolutely miserable, blaming himself for what happened. He was mad that he couldn't stop Kai. And now his friend had gotten totally wrecked. The blue girl broke the sad mood, telling Ray they had to leave, because Hojo was calling for them. Soon, the squad arrived at that blue boss's palace. Hojo explained that while they had reduced the monsters, they couldn't just let Kai run wild. The team asked what they were supposed to do about it. Hojo said he already talked to the other primary color kings. Aya had no clue what that meant, so Yuri explained that the color kings were the top dogs who made all the major calls during big emergencies. She was clearly worried about how stressed everyone was, since the kings only got this serious if things were really bad. The Blue King then dropped the bomb. They had decided to subjugate Kai. Ray's mouth fell open when he heard that. Subjugating was a term they used for monsters, not people. Oikawa backed Hojo up, saying the word was totally right because Kai had done some seriously messed up stuff. All the kings agreed there was no other way to stop more people from dying. Apparently, they already knew where Kai was hiding, and this boss announced he'd be joining the raid himself. Our hero started sweating, begging if there was any other way, anything, except treating his own brother like a monster. But Hojo shot him down, reminding him that even Oikawa's square box couldn't stop this scum, so sitting around wasn't an option. He said the decision was final. Tomorrow, they were going to hunt down Kai. Even though our poor guy knew his brother had done some terrible things, he couldn't shake the feeling that, somewhere, deep down, his brother was still the person he used to know. He was left wondering if there was really no other way to save his brother before it was too late. Suddenly, Oikawa's phone buzzed. The dude checked his messages and told everyone that Kurahashi was awake. Finally, some good news for these guys. The whole squad relaxed a bit, like a huge weight just dropped off their backs. On top of that, Kurahashi sent Ray a message. He told our hero not to worry about him, and instead to focus on getting his act together so he could go smack some sense into his own brother. Classic Kurahashi, acting all tough even from his hospital bed. But those words hit Ray pretty hard. He remembered this was his responsibility. Kai was his little brother, and he couldn't just give up now, not after everything. So our boy turned to Hojo and asked if he could have a shot, just one chance, to set things right. He admitted that Kai was dangerous, sure, but he thought there was still hope. Maybe he could fix this before things went totally off the rails. The Blue King listened and told him straight up, the big Hunt Kai mission was happening the next afternoon. But until then, Ray could do whatever he wanted. RMC felt such relief hearing that. He thanked Hojo like the dude just saved his life. But that wasn't all. Suddenly, Aya piped up, saying she was coming with Ray. Yuri said the same, reminding everyone that they were our boys' party before any of these fancy apostle titles happened. The boss just sighed like a tired dad, but he agreed. They could go, but the deadline was final. No extensions, no excuses. Ray looked up at the sky, probably trying to look all dramatic, making a promise to bring his brother back. A little later, the protagonist and his team made their way to this island near southern Tokyo, where they heard Kai was hiding out. And who should they run into but Oikawa, just hanging around like a secret agent? Realized quickly. This blonde guy was there to keep an eye on things, for Hojo. He said, yep, he was supposed to watch the island and also join in when the hunt started with the rest of the apostles. So, he couldn't help with whatever wild plan Ray was cooking up. But he did hand over a barrier skill as a little parting gift. Our MC grinned. He figured Hojo planned this all along, making sure they got to the island in time. He thanked Oikawa, promising he'd bring Kai back. His friend stared him down and said, honestly, he wasn't sure Kai would listen, but just in case, he asked Ray to help him once more. Meanwhile, on the other side of the island, Kai was not doing well. The poor guy's mind was falling apart. He hated that nobody understood him, and it was like every bad thought he ever had was screaming in his head. Kronos, the evil voice in his head, started pushing even harder, telling him to destroy everything and to stop caring so much. The villain could tell that Kai was still trying to fight him, so the dude just dumped even more power into this purple boy's body. Suddenly, a massive beam of light shot into the sky. Ray and his party saw it from where they stood, and you could tell by their faces, this was seriously bad news. Kai, now totally overflowing with dark energy, started ranting about how powerful he was. Kronos cheered him on, saying he was free to rule the world if he wanted. He told him to just destroy everything, kill all the mages, and become the Demon King. Bro, talk about a pep talk from hell. Not long after, Ray and the girls found Kai. The guy was already laughing, like a movie villain. He said he was disappointed our protagonist didn't bring the Blue King with him, like he expected more of a challenge. Ray told him Hojo believed in him and trusted him to bring his younger brother back. For some reason, that just made Kai madder. He told our hero that he was going to destroy him and his whole squad. This bastard blasted out this insane burst of magic, and even Ray, who was usually so cool, had trouble blocking it. Our boy realized right away Kai had gotten way stronger since yesterday. Then, he jumped into the air, basically declaring war on all of humanity and saying he was starting with Ray. The protagonist, not backing down at all, told his brother he was being the same selfish idiot as always, and that meant it was his job, as Big Bro, to stop him. That just annoyed Kai even more. He said what Ray just said really ticked him off, and Aya and Yuri could see there was no chance of talking this dude down. Then, Kai let loose a massive fire spell that split our boy off from the rest of his team, forcing a one-on-one showdown. Looked like he wanted to prove who was stronger. No, messing around. Ray shot back, teasing him, asking if all he wanted was to prove his power. Kai said our hero would never understand, but he declared that power was justice. He said nobody respected him until he had power. Everything changed when he got strong, and that's why he believed everyone cared about power above all else. His little brother even said he only started to respect Ray after their duel, and that's why he wanted to settle things here and now. Kai started building up this giant magic blast, so strong that our MC knew he couldn't block it with a normal skill. He pulled out his abyss flame to counter it, managing to dispel the attack. This jerk recognized the move from their last fight, and that just pushed him over the edge. He swore he'd crush him, but Ray rushed in, saying he wasn't going to let that happen. Our hero got in close, hoping that would give him the advantage, but Kai suddenly swiped at him with massive claws. Ray almost lost his head right then and there, but Oikawa's barrier kicked in just in time, saving his butt. He used that split second to smash that bastard with a heavy hit, sending the guy flying. Aya watched, barely breathing, hoping our hero finally landed a real blow. But while they waited, Ray realized something. He couldn't steal any of Kai's power, no matter how hard he tried. He wondered if it was because of whatever the guy turned into. Even so, our MC was crossing his fingers, praying that the punch actually did some damage. So, get this. When the dust finally settled, Ray spotted his little bro just standing there with some kind of crazy energy ball stuck in his chest. Kai wasn't moving at all. You could tell he was deep in his head, trying to figure out why everyone on our boys' squad trusted him so much and actually gave him their power. The dude looked miserable, holding his head like he just couldn't deal with any of it. He really didn't get why Ray still wanted to stop him. But instead of talking it out, Kai just lost it and let loose another wild blast of energy. Our MC got a serious shock from that, because he knew for a fact Kai didn't have overclock anymore. So, how the hell was he using so many different skills? But that jerk wasn't waiting around. He whipped up a whole bunch of magic blasts and sent them all straight at him, looking like he actually meant to blow him to pieces. The blasts hit, and it left a huge shockwave. For a second, Kai thought he'd won. He started talking big, telling Ray he was an idiot to even think he could be the bossy big brother when he was nothing compared to Kai's new power. But then, out of nowhere, our MC's voice came from inside the blast zone. He said that even though this scum just won, he sounded super sad. That got Kai shook. He saw that Ray had survived, surrounded by flames. Turns out, he blocked all of that with Kurahashi's power. Bro, before they came to this island, he actually visited Kurahashi in the hospital. His friend told him to just take his power, since he couldn't fight himself. So now, he had Kurahashi's skills, and he was using them to stay alive. Ray told Kai he wasn't going to let him go dark side, because he was going to bring his brother back no matter what. Kai, of course, couldn't believe Ray had blocked his Demon Lance with Kurahashi's AoE move. But our MC wasn't done. He said it was time to get serious and charge in, landing a massive punch with a huge explosion that forced that jerk to dodge it and fly. And just when Kai thought he could catch his breath, Ray followed up with Yuri's mana compression skill. That bastard was pissed. He seriously hated seeing that move again. The protagonist just kept going, attack after attack, not letting Kai get up. Even he looked stunned that a single fireball from Ray was hurting him that much. Dude, our boy was not messing around. Finally, our hero took a breather and realized that Kai still wasn't finished. The jerk started laughing like a total maniac and said he finally remembered why he couldn't use overclock. He figured out that Ray was able to use all those different skills because he could steal power from others. Then Kai got really salty and said that by stealing skills, our MC was basically okay with sacrificing other people. He dropped a bomb. He said 2 people from his team died when Ray stole overclock from him, because after losing that skill, his squad just became weaker. His younger brother said he was fine with being stronger, even if it cost others. Ray tried to say something back, but nothing came out. It hit him hard. He'd never thought about how taking Kai's power would mess up his team's chances. It made him realize that if he kept using his power this way, Kronos could really win in the end, and humanity would be doomed. That was a heavy mood, bro. So he just stood there, frozen, thinking about it. Kai could sense he was lost in his head, and he took the chance to rush in and land a brutal punch. He told Ray it was already too late to feel bad now. His little brother kept beating him down, but our protagonist still didn't fight back. Kai said that they were really the same, always thinking about each other instead of themselves. Ray just kept taking the hits, not fighting, not talking, until he actually punched him right through the chest. Even Kai was shocked that Ray didn't even try to dodge, but then our boy reached up and touched his brother's hand. He quietly apologized for stealing overclock, and, in that moment, gave the skill back to Kai. Ray told Kai that maybe he stole power before, but the real point of having strength was to protect the people around you. Right then, a huge wave of energy blasted out from our MC, pushing his younger brother away. Ray told him that needing power wasn't wrong, but what Kai was doing with it was messed up. Then something wild happened. Our boy's whole body started glowing, powered up by all the skills and trust his friends had given him. He told his brother that everyone had shared their power with him, and this was how he planned to use it, to unite those strengths. He pulled all that energy together, got everything under control, and forged a sword that just screamed power. Kai stared at him, completely freaked out by the new vibe coming from him. The protagonist pointed his sword right at Kai and let him know it was finally time to end this.